All right, and then we are going to share this on our Facebook Live page.
I should click on got it, right?
Pardon me?
I see my screen says this meeting is being recorded. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to be recorded. I should click on got it.
Got it.
Got it.
My page. We're going live. Got it. Oh, that's new. Yeah, that's a new disclaimer that they've put on there. All right, we're going to bring up the Facebook page. Here we are. Oh, that's all right. Let me turn my volume down here. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Joni with the Paperback Exchange Bookstore, 6412 Ridge Road in Port Richey, Florida. And today we have the honor of interviewing local author, retired international CPA, and world traveler, Mr. John CHAPLICK. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, John.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, John.
We have several of John's books here in stock, available at the Paperback Exchange. His earliest book, The Rivergrass Legacy. Let me get my. We also have Bridge of the Paper Tiger. We carry Parchments of Fire. And his latest book, A Light Too Far Away. Oh, that one's a little too close there. How's that? All right, John. Welcome to the Paperback Exchange Bookstore interview.
Thank you. Thank you, Joni.
Let's see. I've got my papers here and I've got all my notes handy. So let's talk about who you are, John. How did you end up becoming an author about international espionage and bank fraud?
Well, when I retired from my business as an accountant who specializes in that kind of thing, I sat there with my cup of coffee wondering, what am I going to do today? And it suddenly occurred to me, the first time in my life, I had absolutely nothing to do. And I said to myself, this is never going to happen again. So I had written a number of technical articles, but as you can surmise, the difference between a technical article in a journal and a fiction adventure novel is worlds apart. So I started up the long, jagged cliff of learning how to write, bloodied left and right as I went through a number of groups that specialize in those meetings. And while they were tearing my manuscript apart, I was learning. And finally, when we got through, I was able to start publishing. And one of the first books I published, and you mentioned it earlier, was this Bridge of the Paper Tiger. Interestingly enough, this came out 4 years before the famous Salvatoran street gang, MS-13, became famous. And about a year or two ago, he began seeing that street gang on the news. The President of the United States was very concerned about it. All the law enforcement were concerned about it. They're proliferating in California. And because of it, it's become popular. And now I think the book, and you have it there, it's this little blue one. It's become a popular book. It takes the reader back through that story. And although the story is not about the Salvadoran street gang, nonetheless, the Salvadoran street gang is an integral part of that book. The hero of that book is a meek, mild-mannered accountant just like me, who wouldn't hurt a soul. And he teams up with a rugged FBI agent, and he stops the Salvadoran street gang plot to blow up the Golden Gate Bridge.
Wonderful. So we've had some experiences here in the Tampa Bay area with MS-13 being a factor. Has anybody reached out to you with all of your information and all of your background, looking to do any kind of consultant work with you on this issue?
No, no, they haven't.
And
I've had a lot
if
of,
they have, you wouldn't be able to tell us anyway, right?
probably not, but there's been a lot of good feedback on the book. Well, all the books, but that one comes to mind because you mentioned it.
Well, wonderful. So when you didn't start writing until after you had retired, so you had lots of great stories from all of your
Right.
workings. How did you, at one point you lived in Greece and did this accounting?
I lived in Greece,
How did you
and
end up there?
my father was stationed with the military attaché there. I went to school there. I lived in a house that was occupied, but this is a long time ago. This is after World War II, but number of years after it. The house I lived in had been occupied by a German U-boat submarine command. And apparently the Germans who lived there took care of the place while they were on duty, but on the weekends, they kind of got drunk and they'd shoot the place up. So the wall over the bed where I slept was filled with bullet holes. And the gardener who worked there with us allowed me to work with him, digging things up. We dug up a lot of German artifacts, among which was the German Luger, which my mother and father refused to let me have, unfortunately, a low point in my life. But it was an interesting time that we lived over there. So
that was early on. You weren't doing your CPA work over there.
no, I wasn't even finished with high school then.
So you've got some fond memories of being there, and those popped up in your book too.
Yep, I do.
Wonderful. So where you do most of your publishing, we've got a share here, a Facebook share page of Cricket Cottage Publishing. And
Right.
that is where you do most of all of your books.
The only book not published by them was this Forbidden Chronicles of a Roman Centurion.
Uh-huh. We've got you up here as the list of authors. You've got several of your books, just a small independent publishing company. How did you happen upon them, or are you a partner of them?
No, I'm active in the Florida Writers Association, partly because I'm a group leader here in Tampa. But when I attended one of their meetings in Orlando, I ran across this publisher and we just hooked up.
Now, I have a lot of folks in the area that are interested in writing books, and I heard some of the sway to what you were saying when you were learning how to write. You were in many reading groups, and it seems like you kind of trudged along, maybe banged your head a couple of times. What would be your best advice to somebody like yourself who has no experience, but really has some good stories and wants to start writing? Can you tell anybody how they would start off doing that in their own neighborhood?
Sure. I would tell them, first of all, be ready to commit yourself to it fully. Don't dabble in writing. If you want to do it, immerse yourself in it and learn to write. Study how to write and read. And don't be afraid to take jabs and knocks about your reading. You'll be criticized all over the place. And just take it and learn from it. Don't become defensive. Just learn and try to get better and better and better.
And write something that you're willing to read 500 times over, right?
Oh yeah, and something that's preferably something that comes close to your knowledge. I can't honestly say that I was fully knowledgeable in all the subject that I wrote about, but I wrote about those that I am fairly knowledgeable in, and I did a ton of research for the part that I didn't know. And if you're giving advice to your new writers, tell them that they better be ready to do a ton of research. My books are about 3/4 of an inch thick, but the research is about 4 inches thick.
So let's talk a little bit about the subjects of each of your books. You did talk already about The Bridge of the Paper Tiger being loosely based on MS-13. You've also got your earlier work, which is the Rivergrass Legacy. Using that term Rivergrass, is that any kind of an homage to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas?
No, I had the same difficulty with the title of that I would with any. When you write a book, you got to be careful of your title. You got to be careful. It's not a title that's in print and in process. And there were other books written about the Everglades, not very many, but I had to pick the term Rivergrass very carefully because it didn't conflict with anything else that's out there. It's an interesting book. I was never sure why it was one of my most popular. It was not my favorite, but it's been an extremely popular book because I guess it takes an individual down through the Rivergrass area, and it's a colorful area physically to write about. Therefore, I guess it must be a colorful area to read about. And sometimes I get the feeling that the plot itself takes second place to the geography down there. I visited down there. It takes place in a tropical fish farm. And I'm a tropical fish hobbyist, so I knew the business. And I visited several tropical fish farms down that way. And when I finished the book, I promised the fish farm owner that I would bring him a copy, and I brought him 2 copies, and he was absolutely delighted, and I signed them for him.
Wonderful. And what about Parchments of Fire? This one is set in Greece.
That's the one that takes place in Greece. Yeah.
And I was going to ask you, in finding out that you were there in Greece as a young man, I was going to ask you if you were there for the 2007 economic crash and whether you did any plotting with their numbers, but I see that you were there as a young man. So talk about Parchments of Fire. What's it about?
It was an interesting book, and I wrote it. I discovered it as I was going through it, that this would be controversial. When I got through the book, I knew it was controversial. So I seriously considered not publishing it because it was controversial. And the publisher said, no, no, no. You publish a book because it is controversial. You don't avoid it because it's controversial. You publish it. So and I think it's been my most popular book.
So it's about a gentleman that goes to study a fish hatchery and then finds through some history with the hatchery that it would create an embellished history of Greece, and that didn't want to be released. Is that what the controversy was? So some of that
this was separate. No, this was separate from the fish hatchery. This is about a Harvard professor who, because of his alcoholism, is fired from Harvard.
Oh.
And he goes there, and he stumbles on, and I knew these things because I was there. He goes to the island of Antikythera, where he stumbles upon a hidden cache recovered from an ancient Roman shipwreck. And the hidden cache, the hidden story that's been buried there in that island reveals a horrible secret about the history of Greece. And no one down there wants it published. And this guy teams up with a young lady, and the two of them risk their life to get this thing published and out. And it does threaten the image of Greece. And for that reason, I was a little hesitant to publish it. But it's been that's been my most well-received books.
Wonderful. And then your latest book, which is A Light Too Far Away.
Light Too Far Away.
Tell us a little bit about that one.
This is an interesting story. It's based on the life of a client of mine, a very courageous woman. She and her husband ran a business that made intraocular lenses that go inside your eyeball. He did the business, and she had her PhD in chemistry. So she did the outreach and the marketing. One day she called me up and she said, "John, you've got to come over. My husband just died of a heart attack. I need to know what to do with the business." So I went over right away. And after the tears were shed, we talked about the business. And I said, well, you know, the business is only 2 or 3 years old, but this business of yours has great potential. I think you should stay with it and run it. She just glared at me. She said, John, that's about the dumbest thing I've ever heard. She said, I have no intention of running this business. What I asked you to come over here for is I know we work with businesses, and when they want to sell them, I want to sell this business. I want you to help me sell it. So I said, well, I can do that, but the problem is you're only 3 years old. You're embryonic. If you sell it now, you'll get about 35 or 40 cents on the dollar. I said, if you stay with this thing and grow it, you'll make a lot of money. I said, look, this is a bad time for you. Why don't you just think on it and call me when you feel better? So a week later, she called me up and she said, okay, come on over. I'm going to keep the business. Show me how to run it. So we sat down and she said, where do I begin? I said, well, you begin with the financial statements. You got to go through them. You're not in finance, you're in chemistry. She said, where are they? I pointed to the cabinet. I said, they're over there in the corner under that cabinet. I brought them out and I spread them out across the table, 5 years worth. We spent all day. Finally, my wife called at 6 o'clock. She said, John, where are you? It's time for supper. I said, oh, I'll be home soon. She put up her hand. She said, no, stay. We'll order out and we'll work. We did. We worked till midnight. She did this a couple of days. Finally, after about 4 days, I got a call from the shop foreman. And he said, John, you got to get this woman off my back. She's out here driving everybody nuts. So I said, well, wait a minute. You better be careful. This woman owns the business. She's your employer. If I were you, I would be very nice to her. Well, a long story short, she stayed. She grew the business. She sold it for multiple millions of dollars and moved to California. Now, the story is not about her, but A Light Too Far Away is about a neurosurgeon who takes on a little kid who is hopelessly involved with a brain tumor. And this woman, the protagonist, is the spitting image of this woman that I was telling you about. So a main character is modeled after this very heroic and very demanding woman.
So that's where you're getting your stories from, all of your wonderful experiences over the years.
All of my experiences. That's exactly right.
So you can obviously get copies of your book here through us at Paperback Exchange.
Yes.
We will also be putting them up on our .com, which is currently pbx-books.com, but I think that's going to change. There's a little conflict with another PBX up in New Jersey, so we'll figure that out. Where else can they get your books besides going to the publishing company, Cricket Cottage Publishing? Where else can they find them?
Well, they can get them either on Amazon or they can take a look at them and they can order them on my website. Here's the name of my website. It's called EngagingbooksOnline.com. That's ENGAGING online.com. They can see all my books back out there. They can read about the background of them. I think they can even take a look at maybe a part of a chapter on there, and they can order them through you or on Amazon, or they can just write to me. The thing about writing to me is that I will sign the books and I will send them out at a discount and I pay the mailing costs.
Well, wonderful. That is a great deal. So we will be adding those links up onto our Facebook Live page. So you will also be able to get a hold of John through his email, also through his website. So you can order signed books from him. I thank you, John, for your interview today. Very interesting. I have a couple of little questions. I recently saw, I think it was on 60 Minutes or one of those shows, where they were talking about how they can find people that are lying on their books, like a CPA or say the IRS. Have you ever heard of the Benford Law, and have you used it to ever catch anybody?
Wow, no, I didn't. If anybody has been misusing or my books are lying, they've been successfully escaping me because I don't know about it.
Well, I recently saw a thing. It was about pocket reference books, and apparently a guy way back when named Benford walked into the libraries where they have the reference books and noticed that only like numbers 1 through 4 are being used. All the other ones weren't being used, and he was wondering what happened. And what they did was he came up with this law. It was called the Benford Law, where if you
Wow.
looked at everybody's deposits, like 90% of them started with a 1 and 70% of them started with a 2. And it was a very unusual way of looking at the numbers. They were asking if the IRS uses the Benford Law. They won't admit to using it. But the way that the front page of like a 1040 or a tax form is set up,
Uh-huh.
they can actually look at those numbers and tell whether you're lying on your taxes or not. And I was wondering if you ever
Wow.
used or had heard of the Benford Law.
No, that's a new one on me.
Well, I'll send you some stuff via email.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
very
wow.
interesting. And what happens is apparently the laws of numbers just go that way. And when you see deposits over the course of even like 10 years that don't follow this same curved pattern of what number they start out with, then they already know somebody's cheating on the numbers. So that's just a little bit of math nerdiness. I don't get into it too much because I'm not much of a math nerd, but that intrigued me quite a bit. And just by observing that the fact that most of the reference books hadn't been used, this was the days before calculators and things like that. So you just noticed that the deposits that started in 9 didn't happen very often. I guess that means because you're trying to build your business, so the numbers go up eventually.
Sure.
But we have a little fun thing that we like to do here with our authors, and please indulge us. I do what's called a speed round, and I have 10 questions for you. You have to choose between one of the 2 answers, and it's just quick. Try not to think about it too much. But I thank you again. We'll say our thank yous afterwards, and then we'll say our goodbyes. Okay. So some of these I think just pertain to numbers and accounting, and some of them pertain to the type of books that you're writing too. So here we go. First speed round. Cash or crypto?
Cash.
Anthropology or archaeology?
I'll take archaeology.
Adding machine or pocket reference manuals?
Give me a pocket reference manual.
Savings or future dollars?
I love saving because I'm an accountant.
1984 or 2010?
1984 was an interesting year for me, so I'll take 1984.
All right. Metrics or standard measure?
Standard measure, I never could figure metrics.
Even though you work with numbers?
Yep, I get lost in metrics.
I don't know where this one came from. I guess from some of your past history. Greek or Roman?
Oh, I like Greek. I lived there.
All right. Jack Reacher or Jack Ryan?
I like the name Jack Reacher strikes a bell, but Jack Ryan seems to be something that I've read about more often.
And here's the ultimate question. Be careful. Be careful. Paperback or hardcover?
I love paperbacks.
That's right. Great answer. Great answer. Thank you so much, John. Thank you for joining us. Please leave any questions that you have for John at the bottom. We will get back to you on those questions. And you will be able to catch this not only on this Facebook Live channel, but we will have it also on our YouTube channel if you want to share this with your friends. Or share this with folks that might be interested in reading some of John's books. Thank you so much, John, very much for joining us.
Thank you, Joan. I'll sign off and good luck. I'll see you later.
All right. Take care now. Bye.